Hi guys, today I wanted to talk about protein, why it's so important in health and fitness, why so many people, including myself, talk about it, and also to give you some guidelines as to what an appropriate intake level might be. So first off, why eat more protein? First off, any protein you consume is going to support your basic body needs, and I think a lot of people don't realize how extensive that need is for protein. Just as some examples, hemoglobin, which carries oxygen in your blood, is a protein. Insulin, which distributes nutrients after you eat, it's a hormone, but it's a protein hormone. It's made of protein. Transporters on cell walls, right, the surfaces of cells, as well as in your gastrointestinal tract, in your stomach, that bring water into and out of cells, as well as glucose, sodium, and a bunch of other things, right? Those transporters are proteins, as well as enzymes. There's countless examples, and to build all of those proteins, our body needs the amino acids that we consume, that we get from consuming other protein sources. So after supporting basic body needs, additional protein intake is going to be used primarily to support additional muscle mass. Okay, why is that a benefit? First off, physique, of course, right? I think a lot of guys can get behind that pretty quickly. But even for women, right, at least in my opinion, having a healthy and athletic figure is a good thing. And then beyond just physique, functional performance, right? If you're involved in sports or something, that's very clear. There's a huge advantage to having bigger muscles, being stronger. But also, especially for older people and inactive people, I think they underestimate the value in this. When an 80-year-old woman is admitted to a nursing home, almost every time it's going to because she is no longer strong enough to do basic life tasks like changing her shirt or getting off the toilet. Okay, so my advice is if you're not concerned about muscle mass, get concerned about muscle mass. Um, Additionally, right, so muscle mass is half of the side of is half of body composition, right? And the other side to that is body fat levels. And there are extensive benefits in fat loss from eating protein as well. Two of those are directly related to muscle content, right? If you have more muscles, then your resting metabolism is higher, okay? Even if you're just sitting on the couch, literally just having more muscle on your bones, muscle is metabolically active, you're burning more calories. That is a massive long-term advantage to fat loss. And your exercise metabolism as well is higher, okay? With more muscle, whether you're running faster or lifting bigger weights, the amount of energy that you will expend during the course of your actual workout is going to be much greater as well, which is another, I would say, long-term major advantage in fat loss. There are also benefits to eating protein aside from muscle mass in fat loss, okay? Thermogenesis. Long story short, we call it the thermic effect of food, but there's a certain amount of energy available in protein. But to get that energy out, your body has to input a little bit of energy first. And that cost for protein is much higher than it is for carbohydrates or fats. So you can count that as an additional energy expenditure, and while it's not huge, it is significant, and that additional energy expenditure would tend towards weight loss, of course. Also, satiety. Typically, high protein foods tend to be more filling and leave you feeling satiated, okay? That might help you control your appetite, which would further aid in fat loss, of course. So how much is the right amount of protein? So the FDA recommends 50 grams a day. Sort of along those same lines, the National Research Council recommends, they recommend 8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, right? So it's based on your body weight. The more you weigh, the more you might want to eat. That translates to 0.36 grams per pound of body weight per day, which would be for a 140-pound person, 51 grams of protein, right? Very similar to the FDA recommendation. For a 200-pound person, it would be 72 grams of protein. Okay, but look, there's a lot of literature contesting these recommendations. And actually, just as one example, here's a study for you, and this is a free study. You can go look at it yourself. It's a human randomized control trial, and what they did is they took a bunch of men 70 years old or older. They put half of them eating the recommended daily intake of protein, and they had the other half of them double that intake. What they found, not surprisingly, is while the recommended intake group lost muscle mass, as we would expect in older men, not only did the double protein intake not lose muscle mass, but they gained muscle mass as well as knee strength. So this is just one example of many, right? But the conclusions of this article in particular is that the current dietary recommendations for protein intake are insufficient to maintain muscle mass. So I'm going to kind of split these intake levels up into categories, and these recommended intake categories, I'm going to call it the deterioration category. Okay, it's enough to support those basic body functions that I mentioned, but it's not going to support your muscle mass, and there's so many reasons to support your muscle mass. If you're not concerned about that and you want to deteriorate and go to a nursing home, you know, this is a great protein intake level for you. But if you're watching this channel, that's hopefully not you. So if we bump that up a little bit, the next category I'm going to look at is kind of a, let's say, a 0.5 to 0.6 grams. You know, nothing, it doesn't have to be exact. This all fits on a spectrum. I just want to give you guys an idea of where you might want to target. But 0.5 to 0.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. Okay, so that would be 80 grams of protein for a 140-pound person. For a 200-pound person, 110 grams of protein. This is going to be much more appropriate for a lot of people, primarily for overweight individuals. Why? Because the protein requirement is based primarily on lean muscle mass, or lean body mass, sorry. The extra fat that you might be carrying doesn't need protein, so having excessive levels of body fat would overestimate your need for protein based on body weight alone. So if you fall into that category, you probably don't need quite as much as we might normally recommend, especially in the fitness community. But I think this 0.5 to 0.6 gram is really appropriate for overweight individuals for that reason, as well as maybe inactive individuals who that would be another reason that we're not concerned about muscle mass if you're inactive, but you should be, and hopefully if you're watching this video you are. In the next category up, I'm going to say 0.7 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. And this is what I think is going to be most appropriate for most people. This is plenty to support really healthy, really athletic levels of muscle. Of course, it's going to depend on your activity levels as well, but that's going to be plenty for most people. Why would we might want to go higher? Okay, so I have this last category, 0.9 to 1.2 grams, and sometimes, especially bodybuilders and things like that, they'll go even higher. So this might be appropriate for people with extremely advanced musculatures, right? Just jacked beyond belief, and especially for people who are in a calorie deficit. Okay, if you're losing weight, there's some tendency to lose an amount of muscle, a certain amount of muscle as well, and increased protein intake has been demonstrated to help mitigate that muscle loss as well. But I think I want to emphasize how advanced your musculature needs to be and how lean you have to be for I think there to be any meaningful benefit from eating levels of protein this high. Even me, my right now my BMI is about 26 and a half, which I'm quite above average weight, but that's even at extremely low levels of body fat, right? And I don't think I even need this much protein based on my musculature. So, you know, there's of course nothing wrong with eating this much protein. You know, what if you think it tastes good, but for most people, I don't think there's going to be a significant benefit for going this high. Yeah, I think that zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8 grams is going to be a really appropriate range for most people. I think it's important to note that carbohydrate is also muscle sparing, and you know, that can have other athletic benefits as well. So it might be more useful to allocate more of your calories to carbohydrate. But that about sums it up. Generally speaking, I would also recommend consuming this protein level, whatever you feel is appropriate based on how I described them for you, consuming that protein level over 3 to 4 meals, evenly spread out throughout the day. I hope that helps. Protein is awesome. You know, I consider it the central, the most fundamental aspect of dieting regarding body composition in particular. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Other than that, please like the video if you liked it. Please subscribe. Thank you all, and peace out.